It is my current goal to beat the game of Pokemon Yellow in a solo challenge using all 151 Pokedex entries. And today we're taking a look at Pinsir. We're obviously jumping well ahead within the schedule here to take a look at this Pokemon, but since we're in October, we're taking a look at, Pokemon that are a little creepy crawly, a little scary, a little spooky. And just last episode, I mentioned Gak, right? The thing that had a lot of advertisements on Nickelodeon back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And in particular, Muck was kind of the thing that I think you put into the mold, but I think Pinsir is what comes out of it. So it felt like a perfect kind of 1-2 punch and feature another scary, creepy crawly Pokemon, one that I never use. And I do know that it's strong. I know that it's got a lot going on for it. I just really hate the mouth on this thing. I can't look at it. It's just a little too gross to me. You know what I mean? But it doesn't matter because today when we're looking at this, I don't have to look at the left-hand side of the screen if I don't really want to. And we can mostly just focus on the back sprite. The back sprite is not all that scary. Obviously the Pinsir, haha, right, see, is also a little spooky, a little like, oh yikes, ooh, don't want to get too close to that. But that's not nearly as scary as its god-awful maw. I wasn't really sure what to call that thing, but that word seems appropriate. Now, this is going to be an interesting run because when you look at the moves on the right-hand side of the screen, I know what you could potentially think, which is, hey, there's a lot of similar problems on that side of the screen as Pokemon like Caterpie have already faced, right? Is this going to be another thing where you get all the way to Lavender Town and then just sort of, that's it. That's the end of the run, right? Because Pinsir can't do anything. The normal type moves and the fighting type moves won't work against the ghost types. Well, this is the one thing that Pinsir actually has going for it, different than Caterpie, okay? Now, what we have on this list here is we start off with Vice Grip. It's the only move that we have until level 21. We're not going to need to get to 21 just to beat Brock. I do think it's going to be somewhere between 12 and 15. 12 feels a little low, but, somewhere in there, maybe with like the right RNG, you might be able to get through at that level. But then you're going to notice that there's a move that you get at level 25, which is Seismic Toss. Seismic Toss is the fighting equivalent to the ghost move Nightshade. It is a move that does equal damage comparable to your Pokemon's level. That's how much HP it takes away. Now, the one thing that it also does is it doesn't matter what Pokemon you're using it against, it hits, right? So Nightshade will still hit normal type Pokemon where Lick will not. And same with this sort of situation. Seismic Toss will hit a ghost, which is crazy. You can't punch a ghost, but you can throw it. I mean, good luck trying to make sense of that one. But I actually do think that the reason for that is because it doesn't matter what your type effectiveness is in this scenario. It does the same amount of damage to everything. There's no, super effective damage. There's no resistance. There's no anything. So there's no reason for anything to really be immune to either of those moves. Now, you'll also see that we're doing obviously a lot of grinding here. I am not going to be able to blackout train at the gym because I only have one move, which means that basically all I can do is attack, which I do think that there's no chance that we don't just knock out that Sandshrew. So we're going to have to do all of our training ahead of time, get to the level that we want to be, and then go up against him and then Brock. Now, here is where I try to get my Pidgey that I always have as my HM employee, and I do fail, so I have to go buy more Pokeballs. That's not something typical for me, but I was like, you know what, I'll call it out. I'll show that even on these little runs, things can go imperfect in ways that you're not expecting. But with the Pidgey situation figured out, let's also figure out the last little bit of the move set here, the learn pool that we're going to be using for this video. It'll be a little bit boring because there's not going to be a lot of variety. However, it's just one of those things where there's so much potential for how fast or how good it can be. So that part I think is pretty exciting. And yes, I do just throw away the Pokeballs. I could sell them back for like, what, $50, $100? I mean, just get the slot back opened up, But yeah, we're going to use Body Slam, the best normal type move that we will have access to that doesn't have some sort of drawback, whether it's recoil or a recharge if for whatever reason it's not a one-shot, and then Swords Dance. Those two moves by themselves, they're going to go very hard. Now, we don't have access to those things just yet. So here against Brock, it is very much just Vice Grip and a Dream. We really need the RNG to be in our favor. We need some misses. We need him to not use Bide really ever. Or if he does, we need to be at the end here. We need that critical hit. And the fact that we go first does mean that we beat him. Now, you'll also notice that we were 46 attack before we get the badge boost here, which brings us up to 51. Now, we're also jumping forward again, so now it's 68. But you'll see there's a huge difference between attack and special. That is going to be our one drawback for this entire thing. Anyone that uses any type of special attack against us is going to do a lot of damage. I mean, it's a bug, right? He's got a exoskeleton, but the inside is mush. It's just, all that. So, we're going to have to really make sure that we are always moving first, always hitting as hard as possible, and Sword Stance is going to be a huge part of that. Now, here against Misty, we are at her gym. We've already gone through all of Nugget Bridge. It's not a challenge at all. And so we can move on to the trainers here. The first one is probably the tougher of the two just because they have two Pokemon. They have some special moves. Now, granted, Peck could have happened, but it doesn't really matter. So now we've gotten through the second person. We're going to do a quick heal, quick save, and then take her on. We honestly probably don't even need to do either. I actually think I really could have just gone for it. I think I could have just done a full send and still made it. Because, I mean, look at that. That critical hit was wild. And then 2 hits. Okay, it was a lot of very minimalized damage there, but that's all you need. C's get degrees kind of mentality, right? Vice Grips get, badges. So we've moved on to the SS and we are making the first stop here. It's the one that we make all the time. It's the tried and true, but it's the one that we've already talked about how crucial it's going to be for this run. Here at level 25, we are going to add Body Slam to the mix, and this is going to be something that we ride with until the end of the video. So get ready to see that move a lot. But now we can go on to the rival who does that constant thing of, yeah, that's right, I've already got 40 species of Pokemon, which is such an insane thing to say. I feel like it doesn't really make a difference. That doesn't really make you a good trainer. And I mean, I don't know. I have a video about that coming out at some point, but we'll get to that some other day. We kick his butt and then we move on to Lieutenant Surge. And speaking of kicking butt, there it is. Lieutenant Surge loses right on time. And now we get to move on to Erica. And Erica's gym is one of the interesting ones of this video. It's a little bit more of just sort of my personal choices, I think, that make this one a little odd. Now, I will say, I always fight every single trainer here unless I definitely don't need it, like Mew kind of thing. But I fight everyone except for the person on the far left. They just don't have very good experience yield. But I fight everyone else, and then I go up against Erica. And I was thinking ahead to Lavender Town at the time, so I just started using Seismic Toss, despite knowing that I have a really high attack, and just by doing Body Slam, I should be just bulldozing through this gym. So I take that note mentally and go, I don't know why I did that. I remember physically sitting there and going, what am I doing? And I came back, just started hitting Body Slam the entire time, and as you can see here, it just takes 2, maybe 3 hits, and then on the last Pokemon, it just one-shots the Gloom. No issue at all. Sometimes you gotta get out of your head and you can't think too far ahead because you start making weird choices. Speaking of weird choices, my rival decides to go up against me again, despite me having basically just handed his own butt to him 3 times in a row. But, that's okay. That's okay. Some people need to learn their lesson. So I show him again why college debt is scary, but someday I can beat it. I totally forgot that I never even mentioned that. His name is College Debt in this video. I started naming my rival for this month after things that I'm afraid of. And I am very afraid of all the college debt that I have, I'll tell you that. It's a pretty high number. It's a pretty scary number. But just like this, someday I will just continuously attack, and that number will go down. And I'll be the champion. How's that for a metaphor? Up next is Koga, the poison type gym leader, who if he just used an actual poison type move, he would honestly kick my butt because it's like one of the few things that I'm very, very weak to. But instead, he just has psychic and a bunch of other moves that really don't do a lot, and so I can barely squeak by. I did get hit with toxic. Without the toxic, I probably would have made it through with most of my health. Now, we have to come back and we have to... Okay, yep, it's the champion. The champion? No. Psych, he's still my rival. He is not the champion. I am the champion. That is the message, and I'm sticking to it. Positive affirmation, baby. And now, here, Rival Fivel, we now finally have Swords Dance. We can set up 3 times. Look at that attack power. That is beefy. And so boom, 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 boom. Like the Costco boys out here. He is one and done. We then do a quick little heal in our menu, save up, and now we're going to go fight the last iteration of the trio. Now, this is one of those moments where if they were able to hit first, maybe they could actually do something crazy here if they made better choices. He's using Tackle. If he had used, Smog or Sludge there, they could have done something. They could have made an interesting run. They could have had an opportunity, but they did not seize it, which I think, to me, is the perfect message about the Team Rocket trio, if there ever was one. They don't know how to capitalize on a good situation. They're too in their own head. Just like me earlier, they were thinking about Pikachu too much, not even worried about the Pinsir in front of them. Now, what's in front of us this time is the first Giovanni. Well, it's the first Giovanni team for this run. We actually skipped him in Celadon, and so this is their first time that we're actually seeing him, and we handily win that fight. And speaking of handily winning a fight, this is a great fight for us. 1 Swords Dance is all we need to outspeed everything. We hit very hard. They are very weak defensively, and so Sabrina goes down. We don't even have to take a accuracy debuff, which is great. So it's a very quick and easy badge. Next up is Blaine. Now, Blaine is easily one of the worst situations for this Pokemon. Now, we're going to use a couple of rare candies just to get our level up, just to make sure that, we can actually go first and do something here. And we make it to 5 health, but Arcanine doesn't need to try and attempt Fire Blast. When I'm at 5 health, a takedown is all that they need. The big thing here is just that my special is so small. And so, yeah, sure, I can outspeed them, but it doesn't matter if one fire move, which is already super effective, and I'm extra squishy, I'm extra burnable, right? Yeah, they're just going to rinse right through this little bug. Flamethrower is devastating, and sometimes, whether it's a critical hit or just, a high roll, they either take out all of my health or like a strong majority of it up front, which is just an uphill battle for the rest of the fight. It's hard for Pinsir to get out of there. You really need to be able to have the RNG give you a perfect scenario so that you can get to Arcanine with a lot of health so that you could potentially tank anything that he gives you. But even then, it's a real risk. He can still hit you pretty heavily. Now, luckily on this one, we get there. He does not go for Fire Blast. He does take down. Our defense was pretty significant. So it did a good amount of damage still, but not nearly enough. Okay, now, this is very much sped up, and it is because Giovanni actually is a little bit of a threat. Really, the first 4 Pokemon aren't bad. But it's Rhydon. Rhydon has Rock Slide, and even though it's not supposed to be 100% accurate, it always hits for him. Never when you want it to, right? But here we're facing that same issue. We don't have anything that's really all that effective against the Rhydon, and Body Slam, usually, unless we get some sort of crazy critical hit situation, we're not going to get through that in one hit. So we do need to be able to live through one of his attacks. Sometimes we may be able to get lucky with Giovanni using a guard spec, but more than likely we won't actually see that with the Rhydon. He has an opportunity to just one-shot me. He's going to take it pretty much every single time. This time, however, he does do the thing. I'm not 100% sure why he was able to attack in that way, and then... okay, that is disappointing. My attack stat was so high, and yet for whatever reason, I got the lowest possible swing on my last 2 moves. It should have been a 2-hit, and it became a 4-hit for some reason. Okay, you know, a very weird situation. That should have been the run. But either way, we've come back one last time. He is not paralyzed, but as you can see on that one, that was a 2-hit. We made it through. He is done. We have the 8th badge, and so we can move on. We've only had a few resets, honestly, and really in the situations where I'm expecting the resets. We don't have any resets that just sort of come out of nowhere, like, you know, maybe Sabrina. Sabrina is a gym where I would imagine we should make it every single time, first try, but you never know. We could get debuffed many times on accuracy and then just lose 5 times in a row. That's not the kind of reset that I'm expecting. Giovanni and Blaine are not necessarily great people in this generation, or rather in this game, in this generation, but they're definitely better. Well, Blaine is better than he was in Red. Giovanni is Giovanni. Now, here you're going to notice that I forgot to put my Pidgey away. It's because I thought that in my head, I was very certain about the situation with Seismic Toss. However, in my head, I thought, what if, for whatever reason, somehow it's too hard for this Pokemon to fight Agatha? You know, a Ghastly at level 20 is not that hard to deal with, but perhaps a level 60 Gengar is too much. So I went and I picked up Mimic just in case, even though I really tried to never use Mimic unless I really desperately need to. And I forgot to put Pidgey in the box after that. Oops. So Pidgey, congratulations. Outside of your solo run, you're going to get a secondary win today. Now, Lorelei is also done already. I've already talked so much about Pidgey that we kind of went right past her, but she didn't really have anything that was all that effective against us, so that shouldn't seem to be that surprising. Bruno also should be easy, but yeah, you'll see that this is kind of a surprising moment. I am not really set up as well as I probably should be, and because of that, he gets 2 screeches off, which lowers my defense down to 67. That strength nearly takes me out. I almost took a loss to Bruno. Whoa. Now, I do have Mimic in my back pocket as a safety net just in case, but really I shouldn't need it here, because setting up 3 times and hopefully not getting put into paralysis, we get lucky on that, it sets up my attack very nicely to obviously one-shot the Golbat and the Arbok, and then it means that all of my defenses are boosted up enough that I can just Seismic Toss my way through the 3 Ghost-type Pokemon here. And luckily, with the 3rd one on that Gengar, it is done. No Hypnosis, no Dream Eater, no Paralysis. That is definitely an RNG lucky moment, I think, but also a testament to the fact that I can tank a lot of those hits. Now, speaking of tanking hits, we are now going up against Lance, and Gyarados is not necessarily the main issue, but it is putting me at a disadvantage for the rest of the fight. I'm having a lot of problems here because by the time I set up against this Pokemon, I am just taking too much damage, and so Aerodactyl will get in there with a wing attack and take me out, or potentially we get to Dragonite and then it has to basically just do anything. It can just breathe on me and I'll be dead. So I really need a perfect situation like this where there is a miss, I get criticals, everything happens just right. I've only lost 40 damage because of Dragon Rage. Then with that one, the Aerodactyl does not get an opportunity to attack, and then neither does the Dragonite. That is the perfect scenario for this Pokemon. So here, with 15 resets, we are going up against the champion. And we only have 30 seconds left before an hour-and-a-half marker. That is something that I thought that I would love to see happen, is do this in under an hour and a half. And even though the animations have, for whatever reason, turned themselves back on, we shouldn't lose too much time to that. I get to do my 3 setups, and then we do the full sweep with 51 seconds. 53, 54, there's only 1 Pokemon left. I get the body slam off, and then at 57.7 seconds, just at a buzzer beater moment, Pinsir comes through in under an hour and a half for a very first run with a Pokemon of all time, not even just for, playing a solo challenge. This feels great. Oh, there's the extra Pidgey. Whoops. I am really looking forward to coming back to this Pokemon in the future. And next time, the rival will just be one of our regular rivals. It won't be something that I'm scared of. But today, we have defeated college debt. I looked one of my fears in the eyes and I said, not today. I'm sending my own horror against you. And I hope that you enjoyed that journey that we've gone on today. If you have and you're not already following, please consider giving us a subscribe, give us a like, give us a share, give us a comment in the chat below. Anytime you interact with a small-time creator, it helps us out a lot. The day that this episode comes out is the same day that Pokemon Legends ZA comes out, and I will be streaming that today on my personal Twitch channel, twitch.tv/ColinNParker. I'll put the link in the description. So come through. I'm going to be going live at about 5 p.m. Eastern, so I will see you there. And I will also see you here next week for another solo challenge in Pokemon Yellow.